The Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Stockdale,
Here.
Commissioner Ellison and Commissioner Davis are both not here today. Commissioner Tobey,
Here.
Commissioner Strange,
Here.
Commissioner Hunter,
Here.
myself, Commissioner Dewey, Commissioner Gay,
Here.
and Commissioner Bryan.
Here. We have a quorum. Ms. Womack, would you please read to us the notifications?
Sure. The agenda for the Planning Commission regular meeting was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on November 5th. The agenda was amended and reposted on November 12th. The public notice for preliminary review of minor subdivision application number 1025-03 for the property located at 330 Road Avenue was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on October 23rd. The public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on October 28th and October 31st, and in the Delaware State News on October 27th and October 29th. Notifications specific to this project were mailed out to property owners in the city limits within 200 feet of the subject property, and signage was posted on the property. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. In terms of mail, we have an email from the owner at 245 Country Club Drive. Any other mail? And that email was embedded with the agenda, I believe. All right. Okay, the first thing we have before us today is the preliminary review of minor subdivision application number 1025-03 on the matter of the minor subdivision of the property located in the C1 Central Commercial District and lots 120, 122, 124, 126, and 128 Rehoboth Avenue in the R1 residential district. Property address is 330 Rehoboth Avenue. Mr. Savage, are you ready to go? Please come forward.
And if I could briefly interrupt before the start, I find it necessary that I recuse myself from this discussion, so I'll be joining the audience.
Thank you, sir. And we still have 6, so we still have a quorum. All right, sir.
And can I turn these on? Good afternoon. Carlton Savage with Scaled Engineering. Address is 20246 Coastal Highway. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Delaware and have been assisting my client's 330 Hospitality Group on this project. This is basically a continuation of what we've been talking about for a little bit of time, basically the next step in the process. So today we're here before you with a preliminary minor subdivision plan to create 2 residential lots on the property. We have a variance that was granted previously to allow parking to remain next to these lots. Currently, these lots are covered by asphalt. The majority of the property is asphalt currently. The plan, as I bring it up, it's a little hard to see, but those are the 2 lots we are intending to create, which is very similar to what was previously presented before today. These lots will be conforming to the code for residential R1 lots. The overall lot schematic will end up being 250 by 105 square or linear feet, so it's a little bit larger than the typical 50 by 100, and that's just based on the lot size. We have submitted this plan to the Department of Transportation and received a letter of no objection from that office. So that should be in your package as well. These lots will share a driveway, which they call it a combined access. That is reflected in this area here. So that will allow these 2 properties to have essentially one access point to minimize the conflict points on the road. We are showing the building setbacks. This plan does show the entire property, so that everything that is shown here, you can see we did survey in all the parking spaces, so you can see all that with this plan. The intent is to leave the asphalt in the existing parking lot in this area, which is adjoining the old building. And that plan will come before you. We're hoping to get a concept plan in front of you soon, so that you can see what we plan on doing here. However, knowing what this will be as a parking, that won't change. That will still remain parking. So there is the front. I'll try to explain this a little bit in case maybe that answers some questions. The front of the property currently angles. So it starts at a property corner that is a shared property corner with the neighbor, and angles across in this fashion. We did not believe that was the right thing to do, as well as we are trying to keep with the 30-foot from center line, which the State Department, DelDOT, wants to see. So when we come off the center line of the road, which is this line here, that will create the 30-foot off of that, which will then align with the other properties on this street. It does leave a 7.47 difference at this point. Most likely when we go through that site plan process, that will change. The reason we didn't offer it now is that's not part of their process currently. This would be to carve off these two lots and only these two lots. But you can see it continues to angle until it straightens up again up in this region. And this road does have a slight curve to it, so that is the reason that's there. But that hopefully clears that up. That land with this plan, the difference, this little triangular shape, will be dedicated to the state of Delaware per this plan. So that will change their right-of-way. With that, a sidewalk stops right at the side of the property. It abuts in this location. I believe it's a 5-foot sidewalk. We had discussions with the State Highway Department as well as the city about this. And the sidewalk, the recommendation, they did not want to take more than the 30 feet of right-of-way in this case. That's their standard. So we provided a permanent easement, which will also be dedicated to the state of Delaware, so that sidewalk can be extended across these properties. And we did add the notes as required by DelDOT for that, basically explaining what has to happen and who's to build them, who's responsible for them. All of those notes are on this sheet over here in the DelDOT notes. So other than that, basically we're at this phase of hoping to get your approval of a minor subdivision of these two lots. And we're here for any questions.
Do we want Corey to go next, or do we want to have, because I do have some questions, but we can go with him first if you want.
Go ahead and ask your
Okay. I'm just curious, thank you for presenting that, because it's much clearer when you talk about it than when we were looking at it ourselves. So you said the dedicated area there, and maybe Corey may be talking about this too, the dedicated area you said is not going to be part of today, but would be part of the site plan?
So what's going to happen, this corner that I'm pointing to here, which is the
Yep.
southwest or northwest corner, this northwest corner currently has a property line that angles
Right. Yeah.
across here. It will, with this plan, assuming it gets approved and recorded, the mapping and the state right-of-way will actually change, and they will make this line actually parallel with the roadway like it should be. And this hatched-off area in between here will be dedicated to the state.
So it is part of the subdivision
It is,
process?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
yeah,
that will be
okay.
dedicated as part of this.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so
What I referred to was the 7.47 feet in this area. That will, I already know what's going to happen as we submit our site plan. That area will be dedicated and changed.
Okay.
But because the residual lands, which is what this commercial property would be called, so we have Lot B, Lot A, and residual lands. Those residual lands do not dedicate land as part of a minor subdivision through DelDOT's process.
Okay.
And I did call them A and B
Yeah.
because you will find out that this was there are lot numbers on the Country Club Estates.
Oh, really?
So to not confuse that, we did A and B.
Okay.
This was Lot 1 did encompass some of this site in this corner. So just to not confuse things as things get recorded.
Then you mentioned you showed all the parking areas going to stay the same.
Yep.
Does that include the spaces that are at the very back facing the residential, or were you just including that middle section?
So yes, it does include these back parking spaces here.
No, I don't mean that. I mean on the part that we're not doing today. You were showing the part that was remaining parking.
Yeah, I can zoom in. So this space here, the end space, this is approximately where this line would end. This end space would be cut in half, similar to this one. And just to offer up, as we go through the site plan process, there's likely going to be some buffering happening
Okay.
on that site plan, which will go along this edge, and then we'll have to redo some striping and different things to make those parking spaces make sense if we need to.
And then lastly, and it's probably not totally relevant to subdivision, but I'm just curious, the driveway configuration. I think it's nice to have only one cut, to have both driveways, but there's room there for 2 cars on each?
In here?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, this
Okay.
is a standard, so this is to scale, the standard DelDOT entrance. They don't typically like us to dimension it, but they make us put this residential access diagram. And you can see here that a shared access, they really, looks like 10 to 12 feet is what each leg will be. And then it's a 30 to 34 foot.
Yeah, but each lot will have the required 2 spaces per code.
Correct.
And each one will be 9 by 18.
Correct. So as these properties are sold and developed,
Yeah.
they will have to come through with a site plan that conforms with that as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious.
But this will be the location of where DelDOT is looking for these driveways.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anyone else on the
Yes,
commission? Yes,
Carl,
Mr. Strange.
I think you answered it because it's being driven by DelDOT more than us.
Sure.
But essentially, if it wasn't for the DelDOT issue, you basically could put the driveways anywhere you wanted.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so this in fact is the physical location of these driveways will in fact be the physical location when you come back to us? Or should they be considered as typical, but may or may not be the reality that you come back with?
This is what DelDOT will mandate.
Okay, so
I
you're
can't say
stuck
that
with
it
it.
hasn't, people haven't asked for changes to it and maybe gotten approvals, but we have to put these entrances on minor subdivisions and other subdivisions so that they can look at spacing between
Right.
driveways. In this location, very low speed, so the required spacing is much less than, say, on a rural road where you may need, 150 feet or more. So they're usually looking for 150 feet between driveways is a typical spacing. Given the fact that these lots are 50, you could get less spacing than that. Logically, this is the best location for these lots, as well as once we leave this entrance here, it pushes this entrance as far away as possible. Assuming we're going to leave this entrance where it is, this is the existing access to the parking lot. It's the furthest point away from these entrances.
Okay, so you're comfortable with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep,
And would you please mention the sidewalk again?
sure. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on it. So the sidewalk currently ends at the edge of this paving. So as the survey shows here, edge of paving, 5-foot sidewalk, it just dies into the edge of the pavement currently. That is not how we intend to leave it. As these residential lots are created, a sidewalk will be created along this 5-foot permanent easement that has been established per DelDOT. You'll see that a note's added to the plan. A 5-foot wide permanent easement is hereby established for the state of Delaware, giving 250 square feet to each lot. See Note 7. I'll read Note 7 just so you guys understand that. Note 7 is in the bottom right-hand corner. And I think this will clarify some of your questions as well. This states a sidewalk shall be installed across each newly created lot during new home construction. The sidewalk shall be the responsibility of the developer, the property owner, or both within the subdivision. The state of Delaware assumes no responsibility for the future maintenance of the sidewalk. So that is their note that was mandatory that we've added to this plan.
So where does maintenance end up? Whose responsibility?
That will fall, so the state's not assuming it. I assume that falls to your code, and your code likely requires the homeowner to maintain their sidewalk.
Okay, all right. Ms. Hunter?
Thank you. So thank you for the presentation, Mr. Savage. I'm wondering if you could just illuminate for me what the process will be, because I know, as I understand it, this is proceeding in 2 phases. But with regard, for example, to water runoff and stormwater runoff, you've got this big paved area there now. Part of that, big chunk of it, I guess, is going to be torn up so that the residential lots can proceed, but not all of it. So at least initially, the parking lot will still be there. And especially with regard to, I guess it's Lot B, but the one that's directly contiguous with the C. The one that's absolutely contiguous
Correct.
with the
This
C
one
area.
here.
No, I think it would be the,
This one.
yeah,
Okay.
the one that's right next door to where the parking lot is going to not be, disrupted. So, I'm just wondering, and I appreciate your reference to the Sussex Conservation District and how they're going to be looking at some of these issues. But I wonder if you could just describe for me what your thoughts are in terms of, especially if there's a time delay between the development of the residential lots and the development of whatever goes onto the C-zoned lot.
So as part of this plan, we did add spot grades that you can see if you zoom in closely. These spot grades will show you what the existing condition is currently on the site in the parking lot. And generally what you will find is that the water runs from the rear of the property line towards the road. It's fairly flat, but it does run in that general direction. There was some concerns previously that this parking lot may have been draining into some neighbors, and I will attest that that does not happen. There's actually a wall in the back, and that water runs from that wall forward is what our survey shots show. So we did think about how do we anticipate this to happen. Obviously, we need the subdivision to move forward. Once that subdivision is approved, we have lots that we now can move forward with site plans on and build houses. Our preference is to leave that pavement currently until those houses get developed. If we were to take this pavement tomorrow and eliminate it, we're going to end up with probably some holes here hanging out with water. Even if we try to establish those with grass, we'd have to try to put grass back in, redo this whole thing. So our plan would be as the site plans come forward to be developed, that asphalt would be removed, and then they can alter the grades per the city to allow that to happen.
So if and the residential plans won't come before us because they're single-family homes.
It wouldn't come before your board,
Right.
Yes.
And so, but I'm just curious nonetheless, in terms of possibility of building into the residential sites, especially, some underground drainage, French drain, that kind of thing, because, right now I live right around the corner, and there's just a lot of paved area. And if some of the area remains paved, but the paving is removed contiguous to it, I wonder if there's going to be a tendency to have greater water drainage come on to what would be the residential lots.
I believe as part of your house construction plans, which Corey's office handles, pretty detailed grading plans have to be submitted. In this case, it's the opposite of what you normally see. Normally you go from grass to some pavement, so you're generating additional runoff. In this case, you are starting with pavement that, as we see right now, doesn't have any issues. It's draining away. So in lieu of creating issues currently, that's why we propose to leave it the way it is. But in the future, there will be less pavement on these two lots than what's there today.
Right.
There definitely will be some work to ensure whatever house gets placed on this property drains accordingly, and I would assume that they would also try to drain that out to the street where it was draining before, or create some sort of infiltration system or something that would allow that to. But you can't, just like any other lot, the town or the city's not going to allow you to affect a neighbor, even the other commercial property here. That will have to be addressed with our site plan going forward, as well as these two lots.
And I realize this part will not be your responsibility or ours, so I'm just kind of passing along the thought.
And so the lots will be sold as is then, essentially?
I mean, there's a chance that the developer will build these as spec homes.
Okay.
And then he's responsible for them.
Okay.
There's a chance that they get sold. But I think either way, as I look at it, the safest play currently is leave things the way they are, because we
until
don't
there's a
currently
plan.
have issues.
Yeah,
It does incur a different cost, obviously.
Yeah.
They've got to remove asphalt at that time. hopefully we've got our plan moving forward, and they know exactly what they're tying into.
Yeah.
But the intent would always be this land drains front to back, or sorry, back to front. And that's what I would assume any engineer would do if he were to try to grade these lots.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Sure, thank you.
That concludes your presentation?
I don't have anything else. To me, this is a fairly straightforward process. This one has a little bit of previous history to it, so that's why I think explaining all this is very important. But I would be interested to hear Corey's side of things and make sure he thinks everything's code compliant.
Well, that's what we'll do. We'll ask Mr. Schinko to provide his report, if you would, sir.
Sure.
And I thought your written report was very well done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I'm Corey Schinko, Director of Building and Licensing. Out of everything on the report, I really just want to talk about the department concerns. There's 2 recommendations, not necessarily requirements, but recommendations, and then 1 general note, because I did want to read into the record one of the notes that the arborist provided for us. So this is on page 4, under the departmental concerns. And again, these are just recommendations. The first one's the right-of-way and future sidewalk easement. This is pertaining to the residual lands. Although the applicant has coordinated with DelDOT to address the right-of-way issues, and we appreciate that, with State Road, no comparable provision has been made for the residual lots on Lot C. While no sidewalk currently exists and none is depicted on the subdivision plan, Chapter 2, Section 232-1C of our city code, that's in our sidewalks, sidewalks and curbs section, requires sidewalk construction when 1, the aggregate value of work under building permits within a 12-month period equals or exceeds $20,000, and 2, at least 50% of the lots on the block have existing sidewalks. Because these conditions will likely be met upon future redevelopment of Lot C, the department recommends that a public sidewalk easement or additional right-of-way dedication be delineated and recorded prior to the public hearing and final approval to ensure future compliance with 232-1C and 236-8B3 and 236-10F. Addressing the matter now rather than deferring it to a later site plan review ensures that the public right-of-way is properly established and recorded while the subdivision plat is still active and subject to revision. Doing so avoids future procedural inefficiencies, prevents the need for a separate replat or easement recordation, and guarantees that the city retains the necessary authority to require the sidewalk improvements once redevelopment occurs. This approach also aligns with best practices for subdivision administration by ensuring all essential public dedications are resolved prior to final plat approval. The second point of recommendation is the parking lot and interface in the safety buffer. The existing parking lot that's going to be in the residual lands remains in use and will remain in use. Under the proposed subdivision, Lot A, seen on the screen there, would adjoin this paved surface with little or no buffer, raising concerns regarding safety, property delineation, such as accidental trespassing maybe, and compliance with Chapter 270 design standards. The new property line may fall directly adjacent to or through existing parking spaces, creating uncertainty in use, maintenance, and compliance with 270-43C, which requires parking lots to be enclosed by a semi-opaque ornamental fence or compact evergreen hedge, not less than 3 feet in height, except where safety requires the lesser height. The department recommends the applicant provide 1, a revised code compliance striping and parking plan reflecting the new boundaries so Planning Commission may determine that the proposed parcel configuration can function safely and does not create a hazard to public safety. And 2, because 270-43C directly addresses the abrupt transition between active parking and anticipated excavation up to the new lot line, the Planning Commission should include a condition of approval requiring that the applicant apply for and install the required screening or enclosure following plan approval and permitting. While the applicant is obligated to comply with all local, state, and federal regulations, this is typical. As a condition of approval, 270-43C warrants specific emphasis in this case due to the immediate safety implications created by the subdivision boundary. These measures will ensure compliance with Chapter 270 performance standards and uphold the Planning Commission's responsibility under Chapter 51, specifically 51A, to safeguard public safety and orderly development. Lastly, just a note, a general note, tree preservation and environmental coordination. Pursuant to Chapter 253 trees, the department received comment from the city arborist under 253-24, advising that a pre-construction arborist report shall be submitted during blacktop removal permit review per 253-27. Care should be taken during pavement removal near the tree line along the southwest side of the proposed Lot B to prevent root or canopy disturbance. I talk about Sussex Conservation District. That's well known, and the applicants acknowledge that. So those are the two recommendations that the department has with the general note of the arborist. That's really all I wish to state, unless you have any specific questions for me.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Yes,
Tobin.
a little clarification, please. You talked about the sidewalk that needs to be continued across the surface lot. Did I interpret that correctly?
Correct.
And that has to happen concurrently with the sidewalks that are being put in here now with this proposal?
So our sidewalk and curb section 232-1C, any redevelopment at all, if it equals to or exceeds $20,000, and the block itself has a sidewalk, the developer or the property owner must install a sidewalk on that property. And with where we're at right now with the parcel alterations, and we're looking at the preliminary plat, looking to move it forward through to a final plat, it's very likely, I can say that with a very, very high sense of confidence, that upon any redevelopment at all of the parcel of the residual lands, if it would equal $20,000 or more, we're going to have to force them to put in a sidewalk anyways. We're in the middle of parcel alteration and lot reconfiguration right now with dedications and easements. It's just a recommendation that since we're in this process now, that they go ahead and just show that on the plat, so when they come in for any type of redevelopment, all of the recorded easements and dedications are shown, and we're not going through this process again with additional easements and dedications, or right-of-ways for that matter.
Is that something the applicant, have you talked to the applicant about that? Yeah.
I don't want to speak for them. We had briefly talked about it. I think that the applicant had mentioned something about performing it in site plan review. I left this as a recommendation. I don't know if I can require this right now, but it certainly is a recommendation because it will need to be done at some point. And we're in the process of recording these deeds in the subdivision plan currently.
One more thought on the sidewalk. The proposed sidewalks on Lot A intersect with a potential sidewalk on the future parking, or the current parking lot, at a very awkward point. There's a whole gap between where the sidewalk ends and as the site for the existing parking lot begins to move away at an angle, you're going to have some interesting configurations, I think, where the sidewalks meet.
That's where the 270-43C, the fence essentially around this, that was a point of concern, because just thinking about this in a practical manner, if you're standing out there on the site and all of that portion of the blacktop is removed, it's going to dead end.
That's right.
And where that dead ends, right now you can see where the parking is laid out. You know, we're going to reconfigure this parcel to this formation, which is is fine, but we want to make sure that in doing this, that the applicant demonstrates safety, just public safety, as far as getting a little fence or a screen around it, and they will have to come in for a building permit for that. But we wanted to bring this up during the preliminary to express just concern and to recommend to ease those concerns if Carlton would be willing to just show a mock-up of a restriping plan, if you will, that would allay those concerns and show that the new parcel configuration could be done in a safe manner to public safety with the screening and with the, that's going to be the one buffer there between where a pedestrian would walk or where a car would drive.
Yes, sir.
If it's okay, I would love to talk about it now.
Yeah,
for a
please,
little bit.
please.
So I'm hearing the concern. Obviously, we're basically pushing that same issue that's been there from the lot to our south and west here. That issue currently happens at this location here. With this plan, that gets pushed 2 lots over, basically. And I do hear the concern, and my recommendation for today would be to turn this sidewalk. Now, we're not showing the actual sidewalk on this plan because it really doesn't make any sense to build a sidewalk until you build the house. It won't last house construction, it'll be destroyed. My recommendation would be to turn this sidewalk 90 degrees here and connect it into the space that is unoccupied currently, which is where people walk, the pavement section. Only reason I say that is restriping and spending the money to reconfigure this parking lot at this point in time, given that I think you're going to see some demolition permits and things coming to you very shortly, wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me because we'd have to go from here all the way somewhere over to here, and likely that's not where the sidewalk's going to end up. So from a safety standpoint, I think we could, we could stripe this area here off and leave the parking as configured, but give some sort of visual break where the parking lot ends. I mean, currently it doesn't change anything. Just putting in property corners isn't going to change anything. But I hear the concern is if this lot were to be sold and start development, now you're left on the other property with what could be a safety concern. We could mandate that when this pavement goes away, a fence is installed. That's one option. That fence would then run along this property line and create a physical barrier. If a physical barrier is what you're looking for, Corey, I'm not sure. But what I think you're going to find out is this is all pavement currently. So the street, all of this basically goes pavement to pavement to pavement. There is no sidewalk, no walking path. Personally, at this point in time, I believe that what's going to happen is you're going to have a dedication to a point, and then the sidewalk's going to turn and come back towards the road. There's parking that's along these 2 lots currently, but then the parking narrows, the on-street parking narrows, and you lose the on-street parking. So that parking, the sidewalk will most likely continue until it gets past that on-street parking and then come back towards the entrance. The entrance being the existing access point here. And then when this property gets developed, this access point will likely all be changed. You'll have crosswalks, you'll have all kinds of changes at this location, and then it will connect back into the sidewalk that's there. Most likely, you'll get a new sidewalk through most of this lot at that point. But I would love to talk about what, that's just one recommendation.
But you're basically saying, though, that line of demarcation, the sidewalk will have to dogleg one way or the other to get back in alignment with the street, right?
Yeah, I don't see the sidewalk being straight back here through all these parking
No,
spaces.
I can't either.
Then,
But even when it's developed in the future, you won't be doing that either.
Correct. It's gonna leave this point, and it might be that it turns at 90 degrees at this point right here. It really comes down to, at that point, we're submitting to the State Highway Department for entrance plans. They're gonna ensure that they have the proper right-of-way, so there will be a dedication at that point. The problem is they're not set up. The process is kind of odd where a minor subdivision, they're looking at the 2 lots being created. The residual lands, you don't dedicate land. This would happen if you had a farm field and wanted to have a few homes for your family, you would dedicate those lands on the lots being created. The residual lands would be left essentially alone. This is slightly different where we have an existing commercial site. I think all of us know right now it's not real active, but I have no problem putting notes on this or trying to figure out a way to ensure this sidewalk ends in a proper location. If you're asking me to come back with a plan that shows that, I'm fine with that too. But I just want to make sure I'm giving you guys what you want.
Yes, Mr. Schenko.
Sure. So when it comes to the public safety, if I just talked to everyone here, you're right. Once we separate these, they're separate, which means residual lands, they're a different parcel number now. They'll have a different application number, maybe a different owner. So the 2 residential, if they come in for building permits, nothing gets triggered onto the residual lands, Lot C. So what I'm just trying to avoid right now in a practical sense is if the subdivision goes through and then hypothetically, a month from now, we get a demo permit in for the 2 residential ones, while the residual lands will stay put for now, then they're going to excavate, and all of a sudden now we have striping that's just cut in the middle. There's nothing there to warn anything, or that'll be a separate property. And I don't want to. I'm trying to avoid a situation where we've got an excavated site where there's no buffer of any kind, and then the property switches to the parking lot where we could have vehicles coming in. And so if it's a restriping or at least like a demarcation to show people if we do have a special event, people might be parking in there, that they need to avoid that section, or a buffer. A screen would do, or, some type of little fence like that, and a striped yellow line or something, and also just to make sure that the parking spaces as they're shown could still exist. They can get in and out, and it won't cause an issue.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was alluding to, Mr. Shinko, is basically striping a crosshatch across this. It looks like about 2 to 3 feet of asphalt right along this section, which would give a nice visual yellow crosshatched area where you realize, oh, we've met the end of the parking lot. Honestly, requiring a screen at this point does make sense, but at the same time, I think, for construction standpoint, that fence is going to get really, beat up and things during construction. I definitely agree that there should be a screen ultimately between the 2 properties. We'd prefer to do that either when a house is built or when this property is changed. I have no problem adding some sort of screening requirement where a fence screen would have to be added at this point, if that would help. But obviously, at the end of construction on the house side would be the most sensible approach, because they could build the house, do everything they need to do, put the brand new fence up, and then that screen has been established, versus putting it today, trying to figure out how to remove asphalt, how to build a house in that location while a fence is separating the 2 properties. But that's just kind of from a logistical standpoint.
Are you, Mr. Shinko, are you satisfied with the additional information shown on this plat?
I think, if we have the written assurances that it will be done at some point, that'd be fine enough without them having to detail everything right now, like a statement of some kind.
A statement, okay.
Yeah.
So a note on this plan, I think we put a note here that I say approximate edge of new pavement. I could show the demarcation line on this plan for the next round. I could add a note that says a fence must be constructed at the time of house completion or as part of house construction, prior to certificate of occupancy or something like that, which would require, it's a small cost, honestly, when you're building this house. It's a kind of odd thing to do right now in the middle of a parking lot. We could potentially do something that may not be as appealing, which would be a chain link fence, auger holes and put a fence up. But I think until somebody builds, I think leaving things alone is where my head goes. Is once a new house is being built, these 2 lots will become beautiful new homes, new fence. Parking lot will have that demarcation with a visual barrier, and I think safety has been met at that point. Sidewalk-wise, I can add a note that the sidewalk shall be connected to the existing walking area up here, and I think that will get us back to where we were before. So that could be a temporary change, and then the site plan process could make a small change, because that will actually be in the right-of-way at that time.
Mr. Toby, are you,
Yes.
your question's been answered?
Yes, that's fine. I do have one additional question, though, if I may. Is there anything in the site plan proposed that would require one lot to proceed construction over the other? A before B or B before A? Is there anything that precludes the flow of construction?
I don't think so. I think the My bigger concern would be concurrent. So if you had two different owners, two different site plans coming in and they can't talk, that would be, but engineer A, if he's looking at site, I'll use A because A is here. Engineer A works on engineer A, he's going to have to make sure it works.
Okay, thank you.
And then engineer B would come forward. But
you.
concurrent would be what I would be mostly concerned with. Two
Very good,
people
thank
not realizing.
All right, anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Strange.
Yeah, I have a question for Corey, but I think may want to hear a comment from the applicant as well. I was surprised with the state of Delaware asbestos inspection form that they found absolutely nothing on the site, which surprised the hell out of me, quite frankly. Knowing the history of that building, at least going back to the late 70s, I don't think it's ever been seriously modified. And almost every building that was ever built, whether it was residential or commercial, had asbestos and lead problems. And this came through as having zero. So I just raise it as a concern that you may really want to be careful when you start destruction of that facility to make sure, in fact, that is the case. Because I was very, very surprised that they found no asbestos whatsoever, especially because of when that building was built, particularly with regard to the linoleum products. And just was surprising.
Yeah, we submitted this sort of as a good faith to know that we were, looking at the possibilities of demo and moving forward with that. This report was in hand, so we provided it to let you guys know that.
Yeah, it was really just for your,
Yeah.
I know you'll look at it again as an engineer when they start to destruct it. From the city standpoint, though, public health is a very important issue here, and the last thing you want is when that building comes down to have
Absolutely.
asbestos dust floating around.
Mr. Schenko, did you have anything else?
No, again, like I said, those were recommendations. If it seems more practical that the easements for the residual lands will be done when they get triggered in site plan review. Again, redevelopment is going to force this to have a sidewalk for our 232, our sidewalks and curb code. We'll do it then. I don't want to, it's not my intention to put undue hardship on anyone here, but it was just a recommendation on that. I am happy, at least during the parcel reconfiguration, that the applicant is willing to, notate some kind of safety buffer between the approximate edge of new pavement under there to show that there is some plan in place that will be taken up for future permitting for these new lot lines.
All right. Okay. Anyone here from the public for this application? Anyone? Would you please come
Yeah,
forward,
and actually you
ma'am?
have to come to the one on the side, and the one in the middle is the camera's not working.
I don't know if I'm not sure if my question
Pull
is.
the microphone
is-
down. Yeah,
I'm-
there you go. Thank you.
I'm trying, I do have a question.
Excuse me, can you
State your name, please.
My name is Donna Boswell.
Oh, okay.
I own the house that will be behind what I think is B,
Okay,
that one.
okay.
A, it's behind A. And both houses, with the house behind A and the house behind B, lie significantly lower than the parking lot. And there is a curb that maintains water flow towards State Street. My concern is, and I don't know if it's your issue or not, but I'm going to guess that that curb would be removed by builders, allowing water flow to flow down easily into those two lots. Okay.
Thank you for your comment. Carlton Savage again for the record. Yeah, so there is a wall or curb along this edge. There's also a fence that I believe is owned by. There are fences. Okay, yeah. I would anticipate that based on the existing topography that's currently there, and we can look at that. You've got a The wall that she is mentioning is this curb along this edge. That allows this whole back area to be raised, which pushes all of the water towards the front, like I mentioned previously. You can see from the spot grades, 21.2, 21.1, 21, everything's heading towards the front. I would anticipate actually that all of the future runoff would be forced to go that way as well. I believe the city code's gonna not be too kind on changing that direction of runoff into a neighbor without some sort of substantial calculation or proof, which will add some difficulty to what the engineer does. They may have to put a drain down the side, or they may have to grade the lot, or a lot of these lots end up being fairly impervious, so asphalt sheets water pretty well. But I would anticipate the opposite, that water would continue to move to the front as the proposed construction happens.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
I guess, but I guess that's an educated guess, too.
Your lot's lower, correct? It's way lower.
And same with the guy beside me.
Over here, yep.
Mr. Schinko?
I can speak just from personal experience working with the residential districts here. When we've had existing retaining, I'm not sure what you would call this, if it's a curb or a bulkhead. The city has its own definition of retaining wall. And I've had that chapter pulled up here. I've utilized this quite a few times for demolition permits. If there's a demolition permit for a property that it has an existing retaining wall, that's, if they were to remove it, would create a very serious detriment to one or the other property owner. We allow them to move it, we allow them to keep it, and even make repairs to it per our own nonconformity section, replacement of nonconforming retaining walls. So
They don't want to replace, what if they wanted to take it out?
if they wanted to take it out, they would have to do so in a way that wouldn't have, where the final grading would not negatively affect neighboring properties.
And that's even during the demolition process, not the construction process.
Oh, correct. Well, yeah, and during the demolition process, this will have to go before well, I imagine if they break it up into two lots, it may not go before SCD, but I think that they're just over 5,000, and it's completely covered, so I imagine that they will. I'm pretty confident that will occur. They'll have to put in silt fencing and storm. I mean, now that doesn't stop water, but it stops the flow of the silt and mud.
Does that help, ma'am?
I guess, I mean, I guess what I'm hearing is that I wait to find out, essentially.
I think there's a...
Because it seems to me that y'all's intention is to sell the property, and then I have to wait, find out who buys it, and goes from there. Is that correct?
Correct. There's currently no applications for houses or site plans for these two lots. To reiterate what Corey's mentioning, what could happen is somebody could buy it and say, I don't want the asphalt there. They would have to submit a demo permit. They would have to comply with all the demo requirements, which includes restoration. What are they going to do to restore the property? Are they going to put grass back? I can't see any other logical surface at this time. Given walking around the property, it would be fairly difficult to, take that out and still not drain water to your property. So I think you have a pretty good reassurance that somebody's not going to try to do that without putting some sort of drainage feature back there to collect it, infiltrate it into the ground. They would have to do something mechanical to try to get that to change. I can't see a way that they'd be allowed to do that and just put a new house and drain everything to your lot. So that you might be left with a similar wall or a replacement wall or some sort of patio that becomes a wall. Those things might happen, but the actual runoff from this lot should not ever go to your property.
Right.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, this is a preliminary review, and as such, we have before us whether to move it forward to public hearing, request additional information, or keep it here for a while. But Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move it forward to public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we'll set it for a public hearing, and we'll schedule it according to our workload. We'll get to it as soon as we reasonably can.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Okay.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
Turn down the temperature.
Mike Strange, we need Mike. Do a PowerPoint.
If you want to work I've got you slide 1, slide 2. I think we even need this. Title slide. Objectives all the way through slide 17.
Excuse me.
Okay, we're back in session. Mr. Shinko,
Okay.
you hold the key to the length of this meeting.
I will try to keep this brief. This is, once again, I'm Corey Shinko with Building and Licensing. Next to me is Nick Walls of Wallace Montgomery. Before I start, I really want to pay special recognition to both Nick and his colleague Aisha from Wallace Montgomery. I couldn't have done this without them, and considerable time has been put into this, and we're very proud of the revisions. We'll go through the outline today, and you should be receiving the draft shortly via email. So with that, no, not yet. We'll just start. That's okay. We'll go right in here. So we have 4 key objectives today. Review the new chapter structure, highlight the major process improvements, clarify what stays the same, preview forthcoming updates still in development. This is an informational briefing. No action is required today by anyone. Your feedback will simply help shape the adjustments moving forward. And the goal here is with full transparency before you receive the complete or the complete draft next week.
The objectives of the update.
Oh, was that the objectives?
Yes.
Yeah. So here shows Articles 1 through 3, which establish the foundation of the entire chapter. They include title, applicability, definitions, general requirements, and plan application content. The new structure consolidates scattered requirements into one place, making it far more readable. This reorganization mirrors modern best practices and aligns with chapters 270 and 102, which is our construction standards. This section also introduces clear expectations for applicants and reviewers. The Articles 4 through 8 shown here walk through the plan review process from beginning to end. They address preliminary and final plan procedures, required improvements, bonds, and closeouts. Administrative exceptions and amendments are given their own dedicated section for clarity. Appeals, enforcement, and penalties are consolidated in the final article. Collectively, these articles create a structured, predictable, and enforceable workflow. Under governance and authority, what stayed the same? The Planning Commission continues as the approving authority for subdivisions and site plans. The Board of Adjustment remains the appeal body. This has not changed. Chapter 270 remains the governing zoning authority for dimensional standards and permitted uses. Nothing in this rewrite alters any existing legal authority or jurisdiction. And this is just a modernization of process and structure, not a shift in decision-making power. Under process improvements, the current chapter contains inconsistencies, outdated procedures, and unclear sequencing. A major goal of the rewrite was to establish a clean, linear review process. This eliminates circular references and integrates all supporting requirements from other chapters. It also aligns our procedures with the city's charter, the Delaware Code, and best practices. This result is a cleaner, more intuitive regulatory process. Process improvements. We introduce standardized completeness checks across all project types. Plan content requirements were consolidated from multiple locations into a single section. Project types and review phases are now clearly defined to avoid confusion. Review responsibilities between staff and the Planning Commission are now clearly delineated. These improvements significantly reduce administrative ambiguity. Under our approval flow now, this slide presents the overall approval flow from concept to final plan. Concept review is optional but encouraged for complex projects. Preliminary plan review focuses on zoning compliance, design standards, and major site layout elements. Final plan review confirms detailed compliance, conditions of approval, and readiness for recordation. The sequence all aligns with common practices across Delaware and neighboring states. The chapter now also clearly defines what constitutes a complete application. All required plan sheets, documents, and fees must be submitted before the review begins. This reduces back and forth and creates a more predictable experience for applicants. Completeness standards mirror what we already do administratively, but codify the process. Applicants will have a much clearer understanding of expectations before filing. Under the signature plan and recordation, this slide outlines how the signature plan transitions from approval to recordation. Once conditions of approval are satisfied, a clean, consolidated signature plan set is prepared. This set is routed for signatures from the Planning Commission, Building and Licensing, and other relevant departments when needed. The applicant is then responsible for recording the approved plan with the County Recorder of Deeds. Proof of recordation must be submitted back to the city before any building permits or further approvals proceed. Under administrative exceptions and minor plan amendments, these exceptions, administrative exceptions, apply only to minor structures or technical adjustments. This is very similar to what we have currently. Examples include small accessory structures under 200 square feet or minor easement adjustments. Minor amendments cannot change intensity, access, number of units, or neighborhood impacts. Anything beyond that, including modifications to approved conditions, must return to the Planning Commission. This preserves Commission oversight while reducing unnecessary agenda items. Under appeals and reconsideration, this section, these processes are now consolidated and clarified in one place. Applicants may request a reconsideration under defined circumstances and within set timelines. All formal appeals go to the Board of Adjustment for zoning, and they remain to the Board of Commissioners for final action appeals. This section removes ambiguity from the prior version and simplifies compliance. It also aligns with the standards already used, again, in chapters 102 and 270. Some of our key timelines. This establishes consistent review timelines for staff and applicants. The applicants must submit revisions within specific windows to keep applications active. The city's review periods are now clearly outlined, increasing predictability. Timelines are balanced to ensure efficiency without sacrificing thorough review. By codifying these timeframes, we eliminate uncertainty and improve process flow. Bottom line here, the chapter is now more readable, more logically organized, and easier to navigate. It removes outdated language and inconsistent cross-references. It clarifies roles, responsibilities, and expectations for all parties. Most importantly, it aligns our process with modern best practices and supports good development outcomes. This rewrite is a major step toward transparency and efficiency. We are finalizing several refinements that will be included in the full draft you will receive next week. These updates focus on clarifying procedures, improving organization, and ensuring the chapter functions cohesively with related sections in the City Code. We are also continuing to align this chapter with the broader zoning modernization work underway. The forthcoming revisions will help close remaining gaps and deliver a more consistent and predictable review framework. Once the draft is released, we'll be available to walk through any areas you'd like to review in greater detail. 2 more slides. We are refining plan content tables to ensure that they match each project type. Graphics and diagrams will be incorporated to improve clarity on technical requirements. We're also finalizing integration with Chapter 253 regarding tree preservation and natural area requirements. These updates will appear in the complete draft provided next week. After the draft is released, we will work with the Planning Commission to schedule any follow-up discussions you may have. And finally, just questions. This is more of an introduction today of an overview. The chapter, the draft is substantially complete, but again, we just have some refinements that we want to fine tune, and you will receive an email with all of this next week. But we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have from a broad perspective today.
I think as a scheduling matter, given what's in the pipeline and the fact that this needs a lot of study, I do not anticipate putting this on the schedule for the December meeting. It would be after the first of the year.
Correct.
Planning Commission.
We wanted to leave that up with everyone here, along with council, to review if it takes 1 month or 2 months. Just like the states, we don't want to sacrifice accuracy and thoroughness for speed.
And it'll give us time to engage and answer questions.
Sure.
Address comments, integrate additional feedback.
What would be the flow of questions?
Well, I would-
How does the information get transmitted to you?
To keep it simple, or the simplest approach I would recommend is if, Mr. Bryan, if you would collect and consolidate all comments from Planning Commission members, work them through council, and then submit them over to myself and council for the city, and then we can work from there.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that sound all right to everyone?
Yeah. And you anticipate us getting, quote, "the document" when?
Next week.
Next week, okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
And then we would have the better part of 2 months, really, to review it, which is great.
Yeah, it should take
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. No, I have 2 questions now that may be premature but I'm just curious because you said a couple of things that reminded me. You know, we had submitted the revisions a few years ago for 236, so I'm hoping that many of those have made their way into the plan, and not having seen it yet, I don't want to go over them one by one, but you did mention the concept plan as still optional.
Well, that was a
That was
misspeak.
the concept plan is largely required now.
Okay, fine. That's one of the things that was in our recommendation.
There are plan content elements that are not required at concept level.
Okay, fine, but some plan is
concept-
required.
correct,
Perfect.
correct.
Then my other question is, you mentioned plus review. Is there going to be an MOU that we would do with the state so that in some circumstances we can require it? Because otherwise it's no longer required.
Yes, that is something that we are working on as a separate initiative. Right now, we have the checklist, so any municipality or community that doesn't have an MOU falls back to their standard checklist. If we want to create our own, we certainly can. And that's why with this draft, like every other ordinance that building and licensing will be presenting in the coming years, we're going to do our best to draft by reference. So we can reference something where we don't explicitly state what's inside that. So an MOU, it can be included, and if it's when we adopt it, refine it, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, nothing has to change in here because it's simply adopted by reference.
Anyone else?
If I may add just a few additional tweaks or integrations that we're adding. Taking the fees and application costs.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
And we are going to integrate those into the yearly budgetary cycle so that as the city prepares all of the everything for money-wise, those will be a standalone element of the budget that can be referenced by the code and then does not have to go through the legislative adoption process as a separate element. You also notice, if you look back in the presentation here, there's certain text that appears in italics. Those are for elements that we're currently integrating now as well. And that includes processes to address traffic impacts from some projects. Now, what exactly is going to go in 236 for that versus 270? That's one of the things we're trying to finalize and hammer out. I also wanted to highlight the signature plan. So one of the things that I've observed over the past 2 years or so that I've been here with you guys is that a lot of times when you have a final plan that you vote to approve, there are conditions attached to it that have some significance. And so the purpose of the signature plan is to remove a lot of those conditions from a written notice and have the applicant transition them onto a final plan, onto a signature plan that actually reflects all of those conditions. And then that is what is signed and recorded. Now, it doesn't come back for a vote or anything. It does get reviewed. I believe we call for the secretary to review it to ensure consistency with the decisions. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was the chair or the secretary. It's whoever wants. But the point is that it takes the guesswork out of the transition from that final approval to the construction phase. And so when the construction applications come in, there is no question about what can be done.
Good.
So
That's a really good addition.
That is really helpful,
it makes it
because
clean.
you don't know how much work goes into preparing these notice of decisions. After we've already acted, then it has to be lawyered hard. And we have to figure out what goes in and what does it say. That's really a great idea.
And just a quick comment regarding those signature requirements. I like the idea of more than one person with a title on the commission reviewing those. I think it provides a cross-check, it provides that other level of just making sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a couple of questions. One request is that when you submit your draft to us, that you submit it in a clean copy and also a changes marked copy. And
I'm sorry.
I know you're integrating a bunch of sections, so that's going to be a little bit complicated, but I encourage you to try something.
I'll
Yeah.
address.
All right. Another, just a couple of things that, as you were speaking, I wanted to pull out for notation. The importance of deadlines to get materials to us before a meeting. I would very much like to, and this may be something that should go into our own code of procedure, but even as recently as the last meeting, we were asked to view at the meeting materials and plans that had not been submitted to us. And that's just an absurd waste of everyone's time. And so I'd like something with teeth that says we're not going to be put in that position again. I do have a lot of questions. I have questions about the monitoring of conditions. And I think maybe the thing I should do is just wait to see exactly how it works in what you're calling the signature plan. I do think that there could be some rare instances where some conditions have been related to a significant amount of public discussion, approval, whatever. I don't imagine this would come up very often, but I think it should be perhaps up to the discretion of the Planning Commission to have some further public consideration of that and not have, in terms of the compliance with conditions. Again, I'm just talking, off the top of my head, I haven't seen any of your draft, so throwing that out. The other thing that I would ask about is, as you were going through your presentation, the thing that jumped out at me actually was that although the responsibilities and jurisdictions of all the bodies, I take it, are not changing, the standard of appeal is changing, if I heard you correctly, so that if, right, the recommendation, and frankly, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but just tell me whether I've got this as a correct understanding. Is my understanding correct that the draft would propose that if an appeal is taken from this body to the city commissioners, and/or perhaps the Board of Adjustment, depending on what the issue is, that the standard of review would not be to ask whether this body acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner, and if not, then the decision would be upheld, but instead to ask whether this body acted in a reasonable manner, and that the decision of this body could be reversed if the appellate body concluded that it had not acted in a reasonable manner.
Close. So it was in a manner that was supported by the information presented on the record. Now, obviously, I'm not going to deign to try and tell your legal minds here what to think about that or all the complexities of those standards, but it is currently what's suggested and recommended by the American Planning Association for those initial levels of appeal or requests for decision. I'll note that there's actually before the appeals process leaves the planning commission, there's an appeal to the planning commission to reconsider. And if that is denied, then it goes to the Board of Appeals for consideration.
All right, and is that, I'll just call it what I call it. Sure. Is that motion to reconsider to this body, is that required before an appeal can be taken to the?
That's the way it was currently written.
All right. Again, I realize this is all in the draft, but again, just clarifying.
I'm sorry, when I say currently written, that's as it is currently in the city code. So we copy pasted that existing process, if you will. The only significant change that we made was to that standard of review.
All right, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that as it flashed by, what you're proposing as the new standard did include the term reasonableness.
No, reasonable determination, yes.
Okay, well, that's very different from whether it's supported by evidence in the record.
Right here, the whole quote is there. That didn't work well. Reasonable determination.
Based on evidence in the record. Well, I mean, reasonableness is, for me,
It's an ambiguous term.
Well,
Semi.
yeah. I mean, one could, to my mind, if it is supported by evidence presented in the record, then it is not arbitrary and capricious.
Right,
And that's in law, there's a big difference between arbitrary and capricious and reasonable. And what you've added here, based on evidence presented on the record, I strongly support that aspect of it. But anyway, I'm just telling you, there are issues down the road on this.
This being a significant point of debate,
Yeah.
honestly. And I am, as I said, I'm not going to try and tell you guys how to interpret that, simply that it is the recommendation of the American Planning Association for that initial review.
Okay, well, if you can, for me personally anyway, if you can submit anything in support of that, making that change, I probably will still object to it, but I will object in a much more informed manner.
And again, these are considerations for you.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, we're trying to look at the amalgamation of national best practices, state law, local practice.
No, I
and
understand.
history is. So where we can get everything in alignment, we're going to try. But if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Those are the only points I would raise.
If I could just reply to, Nan, I think it was point number 2 that you made with procedures. There will be a section in the draft where it's all, I think, italicized or boxed in, and it's because we weren't comfortable codifying it, and it's because it references your bylaws.
Yeah.
And so what we
You're
did
talking
want to
about
do,
the
if
deadlines
we
now?
did that, we could codify
Yeah.
your bylaws in the
Yeah,
code, and then
right.
you could change them year over year, or any amendments, refinements you'd like to make.
Just
And-
by reference to the bylaws, not actually including them in the code, yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I agree that we should maintain flexibility, and I think that the issue of, what I was referring to, the deadlines in terms of when people get things into us, I understand that, questions come up about that, but I think we need something so that at least presumptively, those materials are not agended unless, they meet
100%.
maybe 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks, but something.
And we do have 2 locations for that. So first, the 23624 is the Planning Commission's actions and duties and all that. Right now, we've sort of left a placeholder because we want your input to tell us, what do you have in your policies and procedures and everything that you want to codify? What would you like to see in there?
Rule 12.
Additionally,
Rule
okay.
12 of the amended procedures would be helpful.
The deadline.
Yeah, it's the 30 days.
So then we get down to 23638, and this is discussing amendments to the application, to the plans. So here you're going to find other constraints on when those amendments can occur, how they are to be submitted, any fees associated with those, and some other things. Timing is a significant issue that we were very cognizant of, both from the applicant's perspective. They need to have some degree of predictability in timing because of the money involved with all of this. It's often a lot of investment on their part, and we want to provide some degree of assurance of consistency and reasonableness. And I think that's generally agreeable for a goal. But at the same time, they have responsibilities on the applicant's side. In order to help us make these processes efficient and effective, they can't slide stuff in at the last minute on us. That's just not how it works.
Well, unfortunately, it has been how it works.
Well, we're going to put some structure in place
Okay,
that'll
good,
really
yeah.
provide a enforcement mechanism.
Good.
Or a
Great.
hard and clear rule.
Good.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hunter, there were a couple other things that you said that I can't recall during your points. So it was the timing, it was the review standard, it was the
Well, I talked about the monitoring of conditions.
inspections. Thank you.
Well, from what I've heard so far, and since I haven't read anything,
Of
you
course.
know, the standard of review is what leaps out at me. But I'm sure there'll be lots of good discussion.
So there are going to be times talking about the transition from final approval into the signature plan. There are going to be times when some of the conditions that are included in the decision aren't really applicable to that site plan itself or development plan, but will be addressed in construction phase. Again, recently, some of the flood construction standards. Those will be codified as a clear note within that signature plan so that it is binding to the applicant as they move forward into the next phase. Not that it wasn't previously, but this consolidates and makes sure that everybody is aware who looks at that plan.
I mean, the other consideration I would just raise along those lines, and it's pertinent to other things as well, is that, you know, just thinking about, you know, potential with regard to flooding and so forth, you know, it's not far-fetched to imagine that there would be situations in which the city would be subject to liability if, acting through this body and your offices and so forth, the city did not take sufficient steps to protect against certain kinds of damages. So I would just encourage you to keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the least of which is a reduction in the city's flood insurance rating. And that will affect every single person who gets in flood insurance in this area. And you can bet that there will be consequences to something like that. So
If I may too, you heard me reference Chapter 102 a bit. That's our adoption of our building codes. So starting next year, we're going to begin the process of adopting the 2027 code cycle. And that will have much more robust codes. So again, adopting by reference, just like how we have our ANSI standards for accessibility, it will allow us to, by adoption of reference, once we adopt all those codes, we can make any of the amendments to those codes that we like. We have our whole flood damage reduction, Chapter 159, that needs an overhaul too, but that'll coincide when we have the 2027 codes, which at least puts us in a safe spot until roughly 2034. So that'll move us forward. And we didn't want to, again, explicitly state anything, but with that reference, we can all tie it back and use that you can use that to your advantage.
Well, I commend you for your efforts and your work so far.
It's greatly
Look
appreciated.
forward to working more on it.
there's still pieces that need to be fleshed out, filled out, and it's going to be an iterative process. I want to emphasize this. What we're going to be submitting to you next week is not by any stretch final. We need your input and feedback. You guys have much more history and connection and knowledge of the processes, all the issues and requirements, and you can't replace that. You know, one of the things Corey and I are going to be doing early is having further discussions with Ms. Ann as well, and making sure that we don't have a misunderstanding reflected anywhere, that what we have is sufficient, clear, and realistic, I guess, logical. I mean, we can hope, right?
Just a quick timing question. You said we probably would be bringing this back in January, so we have a couple months to go. Would the step after that be to take all of our feedback and do what?
So,
Create a
yeah, I believe after Mr. Bryan can compile all of your comments,
Yeah.
along with legal, get them over to my office with Lisa. We'll review. I'll start work with Nick with Wallace Montgomery to incorporate all of those into the final master chapter. We'll probably bring that back for all of your review one last time to make sure that all of the comments that you felt should be adjusted or amended, deleted, and added to the draft we'll give to you next week are done. And then my hope is after that, we can, at least part of maybe a unified front, we can present this to the Board of Commissioners for their review, at least in a workshop. We can bring it up, and then if they'd like to, because this does talk about rezoning, and I didn't want to go into any specifics with that today. We'll allow you to read it and take a look, but it's going to, I'm sure they might have some input as well on rezoning, but this will be, that's how I see it moving forward. So likely to them, we're looking at spring.
Spring, yeah, that's good, okay. Great.
If I could have one request outside of the timeline that Corey just spoke to, if you guys could provide anything whenever it's available, whenever you have a chance to put it together, regarding what you want to see in the Planning Commission's codified section here from your policies and processes, the sooner we can get that from you, the sooner we can get that integrated and typed up.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So,
Anything else?
And again, if you have questions outside of the comments, please don't hesitate to reach out through Michael.
Okay.
Who will coordinate with Corey. Sorry.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anyone, well, there is no one here for public comment. Wow.
Just us.
Just us.
Just us.
Mr. Toby, do you have anything to add?
Sorry?
Do you have anything to add?
Absolutely not.
All right, we're adjourned.
Hey, I
Happy
predict-
Thanksgiving.
I predicted we'd be out by 2 o'clock.